Owning a dog is one of life's most profound joys. Dogs bring unconditional love, loyalty, and endless happiness to their owners. Their affection creates bonds that are unmatched, forming relationships that feel as close as family. However, having a dog isn't always easy. It requires a significant commitment of time, money, and energy. Owners must feed, walk, groom, and provide medical care for their dogs, all of which can be demanding. Yet, the hardest part of having a furry friend is accepting that their time with us is limited. Dogs' lifespans are much shorter than ours, and the thought of saying goodbye is often the most heartbreaking aspect of pet ownership. One woman who had shared her life with her beloved dog, Steve Mason, for 16 years, knew this all too well. Over those years, Steve Mason, or Mason as she called him, had been her constant companion, sharing countless adventures and memories. He was there through every high and low, always offering comfort with his loyal presence. But as he aged, she began to see the signs of his slowing down. His once energetic demeanor was now gentler, and she knew their time together was growing shorter. Preparing for the inevitable was difficult, but she tried to make peace with it. Little did she know that Mason's story would take a turn no one could have predicted. She shared her story, saying, "This is Steve Mason, the most incredible dog I have ever met and my best friend for the past 16 years. This is the story of how he died saving my life one last time." The woman recounted how, despite his age, Mason never lost his spirit. He still tried to accompany her on hikes and walks, and though he moved slower, he remained by her side as her steadfast companion. On a cold March morning, she took Mason and her family's 3 younger dogs out for a short hike around their property. It was meant to be a brief outing before she had to leave for work. They were about a mile from home when she noticed a figure following them in the distance. She quickly recognized it as a wolf, a rare sight in her valley, as she hadn't seen one in over 15 years. Normally, wolves avoid humans, especially those with multiple dogs, so she turned them toward home, hoping to give the wolf space to leave peacefully. But the wolf didn't back away. Moments later, she noticed the wolf had crept closer, now only 15 feet behind them. The wolf was large, her shoulder nearly reaching the woman's hip, and she looked desperate, hungry, and determined. The wolf lunged, and for the next 20 minutes, chaos ensued. The woman fought the wolf off with her steeples, while the dogs nipped at its legs, trying to defend themselves. Despite appearing weak, the wolf was a fierce fighter. Mason, despite his age and frailty, stood beside her, refusing to back down. The wolf's eyes locked onto the woman, but it was clear her true target was the dogs. When the wolf finally pinned the smallest dog, Mason charged. In that moment, the woman saw a strength in him she hadn't seen in years. He lunged at the wolf, knocking it off the puppy. But in a split second, the wolf retaliated, grabbing Mason by the throat. Mason's heroic act saved the others, but it cost him his life. The woman's heart broke as she watched her brave, beloved friend make the ultimate sacrifice. Mason's story, one of loyalty and courage, serves as a powerful reminder of the love and devotion that dogs bring to our lives. He died as he lived, protecting the ones he loved, a true hero to the end. Steve Mason, or simply Mason as his friends called him, was a husky Labrador Rottweiler mix with fluffy ears and facial markings that made it look like he was always wearing Harry Potter glasses. I chose him from a litter of puppies because, while the others yipped and played, he was the only one who paused to sniff the flowers. He had a special way of perking up his ears that always motivated me, whether it was pushing myself to the top of a ridgeline or pulling me out of whatever troubles I was facing. Mason's perceptiveness was something I admired deeply. Little did I know that one day his sharp instincts would be both life-saving and fatal. Mason had his quirks. He was obsessed with breaking sticks into small pieces and tearing up any cardboard he could find. I said, he was so meticulous about it that many vacuum cleaners met their end trying to clean up his messes. Mason was more than a pet. He was my best friend and a steadfast companion for my older brother, too. Whenever they saw each other, even if years had passed, Mason would leap into his arms like an excited puppy, no matter how old he got. Mason's playful, loving nature made him an irreplaceable part of our lives. He had a way of bringing joy and comfort to everyone around him. But his loyalty and protective instincts went far beyond the ordinary. In his final days, these qualities would come to the forefront in a way I could never have imagined. Though he was aging, slowing down, and losing some of his energy, Mason remained a fierce protector, always vigilant. His unwavering devotion and courage would ultimately define his legacy. For me, Mason was more than just a dog. He was a constant source of strength and a reminder of the power of love and loyalty. Everyone who met Mason couldn't help but comment on what an incredible dog he was. Many even said he was the kindest soul they'd ever encountered. Though he wasn't human, it was clear to all just how special he truly was. In the past 2 years, however, Mason began to show the signs of aging. His hearing diminished, his eyesight faded, and his balance grew unsteady. Every dog owner dreads this stage, when their loyal companion's health begins to decline. It's a reality that comes with the joy of having a pet, and it forces owners to confront the painful truth that their beloved furry friend won't be with them forever. As Mason's age caught up with him, his owner often found herself wondering how he would spend his final days. She shared, "I kept expecting him to pass peacefully in his sleep or collapse on a hike. My worst fear was that he'd become so old and frail that we'd have to put him down. I didn't think I could bear doing for him what I had done for so many other dogs. He was just too special. He seemed so old, and I couldn't imagine saying goodbye." Mason's gradual decline weighed heavily on her as she struggled with the thought of losing her best friend. Despite knowing it was inevitable, the thought of letting go was unbearable. Yet, through it all, Mason's loyalty and spirit remained strong. Even as his body weakened, his devotion never wavered. What she didn't know was that despite his frailty, Mason would face one final challenge that would showcase his bravery and unbreakable bond with her. In an extraordinary act of courage, he would prove that his love and loyalty were stronger than anything else, leaving behind a legacy that would forever define him. She continued, "Mason just wouldn't slow down, no matter how much his age caught up with him. Even as he moved slower and couldn't go as far, he never seemed to mind. This winter, I made it a point to have as many adventures with him as possible, knowing that our days together were likely limited. On March 5th, Mason, my family's 3 younger dogs, and I headed out for a quick hike around our property before I had to leave for work. We were about a mile from home, following our usual snow-show trail, when I noticed a figure trailing us about a quarter-mile back. I recognized it immediately as a wolf. I hadn't seen a wolf in our valley for 15 years, but I knew they were typically shy and avoided humans, especially those with multiple dogs. To give the wolf space, I turned us back toward home, assuming it would take the opportunity to retreat. However, a few minutes later, the smallest dog let out a bark. I turned to see the wolf standing just 15 feet behind us. She was enormous, her shoulder nearly reaching my hip. Her eyes showed a mix of fear and hunger, and I knew instantly we were in serious trouble. Before I could react, she lunged at us. For the next 20 minutes, chaos ensued. The wolf was relentless, and we fought her off as best we could. I swung my ski poles at her, trying to keep her at bay while the dogs circled, nipping and dodging her attacks. Despite her lean and hungry appearance, she was a powerful and skilled fighter. Mason, despite his frailty, stood right by my side, facing down the wolf with the courage I had seen in him all his life. As we fought, I could tell the wolf wasn't focused on me, she was after the dogs. Her eyes locked onto mine, but it was clear her target was the smaller, more vulnerable members of our group. When she finally pinned the smallest dog, everything seemed to slow down. I watched in horror as she went for the puppy, and then, in a flash, Mason charged. In that moment, my old, tired dog seemed to transform. It was like he summoned every ounce of strength he had left. He looked larger and more powerful than I'd ever seen him before. With a fierce determination, he knocked the wolf off the puppy, giving it a chance to escape. But the wolf retaliated immediately. Within seconds, she clamped her jaws around Mason's throat. It happened so fast. One moment, he was my brave, strong hero, and the next, it was over. Mason had sacrificed himself to protect us, and in that split second, he was gone. I've never screamed so loudly in my life. Every instinct told me to attack the wolf, to stab her, to tear her apart. But I knew that would only get me killed too, and I had 3 other dogs to protect. It was too late for Mason. He was gone, and she was already tearing into him. This is the wolf. The picture was taken the next morning by guards at a nearby border station when she wandered past. In that moment, all I felt was anger. I wanted to kill her. But with time and distance, I can't bring myself to hate her. She truly is one of the most beautiful creatures I've ever seen. I understand now that she was starving, fighting for survival, and did what she had to do. I think she went into that fight knowing it might be her last, but fate had it that she got him first. I only hope she makes it out of this valley safely. The loss of Mason feels like a deep, empty void in my chest. I miss him so much that it's hard to put into words. Even though I know there was nothing more I could have done, I can't escape the nagging feeling that I failed him. I replay that moment over and over, wondering if there was something I could have done differently. But when I take a step back and think about it, I realize that most dogs at 16 pass away slowly, struggling through the pain and weakness of old age, often slipping away quietly by the fireside. Mason, however, left this world like a bolt of lightning, swift, brave, and protecting those he loved. In his final act of courage, he saved my life and the lives of the 3 younger dogs. Mason was more than just a dog to me. He was my puppy, my protector, my brother, and my best friend. From the moment I picked him from the litter, he became an inseparable part of my life. He was always there, through all the ups and downs, the adventures, and the quiet moments. He had a way of making me feel safe and loved, and I could always count on him to be by my side. Mason had a spirit that was bigger than life. His loyalty was unwavering, and his presence brought a sense of calm and comfort that I treasured deeply. As the years went by and Mason grew older, I knew that our time together was limited. I tried to prepare myself for the inevitable, but I never imagined it would end the way it did. Mason had been with me through so many stages of my life, and in every moment, he was my loyal companion, my protector, and my best friend. Even as his energy waned and his body became frail, he remained a constant source of comfort and love. I watched as the puppy who once bounded through the fields with endless enthusiasm became a gentle, tired companion. Still, I cherished every moment, knowing how precious our time together was. But when the day came, Mason showed me just how strong and brave he truly was. In his final moments, he transformed from the gentle dog who had slowed down with age into the fierce protector I always knew he was deep down. Despite his age and physical limitations, he fought with everything he had to keep us safe. His courage was unwavering, and he didn't hesitate for a second. Seeing him stand his ground, sacrificing himself for us, is something I'll never forget. It was as if, for one last time, he gathered all his strength and reminded me of the hero he had always been. Mason lived his entire life as a hero, and it only felt fitting that he left this world as one too. Even as his body aged, his spirit remained as strong as ever. He never lost that spark, that fierce loyalty and protectiveness that had always defined him. In the end, he gave everything he had to ensure we were safe. That's the kind of dog he was, one who loved deeply and protected without hesitation, no matter the cost. He didn't care that he was old or tired. He only cared about us. Losing him is one of the hardest things I've ever faced, but I feel so grateful to have had him in my life. He taught me about unconditional love, loyalty, and courage. I loved him more than I can ever put into words, and I will carry his memory with me forever. Mason wasn't just a pet. He was a part of my family, and the bond we shared is something that will always remain in my heart. I know I will always miss him, and the ache of his absence will never fully fade, but I also know that he'll be with me in spirit, guiding and watching over me just as he always did. Every time I think of Mason, I'll remember the countless adventures we shared, the comfort he brought me in difficult times, and the way his eyes always looked at me with such love and understanding. I'll remember the hikes, the quiet nights by the fire, and even the simple moments, his playful bark, the wag of his tail, and the warmth of his presence. I'll remember how, even when his body grew tired, his spirit never wavered, and how he gave his all until the very end. Mason will always be a part of me, and the love we shared will never fade, no matter how much time passes. Our bond was special, and it will live on as a reminder of the kind of unconditional love that only a dog like Mason could give. He gave me 16 years of joy, loyalty, and companionship, and for that, I will be forever grateful. Goodbye, Mason. I love you, buddy. Thank you for everything you gave me, for your love, your protection, and your friendship. You will always be my hero. With a heavy heart, she shared her story, paying tribute to the companion who had sacrificed everything to protect her. In honoring Mason, she celebrated not just the life of a beloved pet, but the legacy of an unbreakable bond built on love and loyalty.